The following constitutes a verbatim reading of every legal word contained within a publicly accessible, unsealed, and open court document. The reading may contain minor idiosyncrasies, such as mispronunciations or slight stumbles by the reader. It is important to note the document being read and the evidence played and/or displayed is freely available to the public in its entirety. The purpose of this reading is solely to recite the words present in the transcripts without any alteration or interpretation of their meaning. All images shown are AI-generated and solely meant as a general representation of the people present in the courtroom. This reading is the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump. Indictment number 71543/2023, falsifying business records, first degree. These proceedings are from May 9th, 2024, Part 59, morning session. This reading is brought to you by everylegalword.com and begins on page 2781.
This is the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump. Indictment number 71543/23. Appearances, starting with the people.
For the people, ADAs Joshua Steinglass, Susan Hoffinger, Becky Mangold, Matthew Colangelo, Christopher Conroy, and Catherine Ellis.
For the defense, Susan Necklace, seated here with President Trump is here, Todd Blanche, Emil Bove, and Jadalia Stern.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Trump.
Just a short application.
Sure.
I conferred with Ms. Nicholas this morning. Among the defense exhibits are J26, marked as J26 is an arrest record for Ms. Daniels from back in 2009. It's an allegation, according to the document, of simple battery with absolutely no injury regarding her former husband with whom she's divorced. I asked Ms. Nicholas this morning if she was planning to elicit a question about a prior arrest. She said she was. We moved to preclude that. The case never proceeded and was dismissed without prosecution.
I wasn't intending to try to put the record in evidence. I was just going to ask about whether she was arrested.
As I say all the time, anybody can be arrested. Any one of us can be arrested when we step outside. That doesn't prove a thing. If it resulted in nothing, you're precluded from going into it.
I'm going to ask instead if her then husband accused her of that. I won't say anything about being arrested, just accusing her.
Anybody can be accused of anything. It has nothing to do with credibility. It was as a result of a divorce proceeding.
If it wasn't a result of a conviction or a fine or sentence, no, it's not probative of anything. Anything else we need to get into before we get the witness back on the stand?
No, Your Honor.
One thing. I asked on Tuesday if you wanted to submit a request for a limiting instruction. What do you want me to say on that?
Your Honor, I think that given the cross, I'm not sure. It depends where we end at the end of the testimony. Can it wait until then?
Yes, I agree. Let's get the witness back.
Witness entering.
Good morning, Ms. Daniels. I remind you, you're still under oath. Let's get the jury, please.
All rise. Jury entering. Do both parties confirm that all parties are present and properly seated?
Yes.
Good morning, jurors. Welcome back. Ms. Necklace?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Daniels, when we ended the day on Wednesday or Tuesday, we were talking about what occurred prior to the 2016 election, correct?
Yes.
You recall that President Trump was elected president in November of 2016, right?
Correct.
And in 2011, you had given an interview with E! Online where you said your story about having sex with President Trump was bullshit, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, do you recall that?
Objection.
Sustained.
But in 2016, you were trying to sell your story, right?
Yes.
We were reviewing People's Exhibit 171A. If we could pull that up and put that up again, we can turn to page 2. That can be shown to everybody. That's in evidence. If we can blow up the part starting with, I have her, is she ready to talk? Blow up the 4 from the bottom. You see in this part, you say that Gina Roberts was saying, was asking whether you were ready to talk, right?
Objection.
Please approach.
Two things. One, this has been fully gone through last time. She can go through it again, but it's exactly the same. Second, she didn't say anything. These are not her text. Miss Nicholas had her read the Gina Rodriguez text to Dylan Howard. I guess if she wants her to read them again, that's not her testimony. She's mischaracterizing.
I am not mischaracterizing. I was in the middle of this. I have 3 minutes and then I'm done.
One thing about this, I gave you latitude on Tuesday. You can ask her if she's aware of some of this, but you can't do it in such a way that you're putting words in her mouth.
Okay.
The objection is sustained.
At this point, you were asking for money. You wanted money from President Trump, right?
No.
You weren't asking for money in 2016?
I never asked for money from President Trump.
You asked it from Michael Cohen, right?
No.
Well, you wanted to make money from selling your story, right?
I never asked for money from anyone in particular. I asked for money to tell my story.
And that's what you're asking in 2016, was for money to be able to tell your story, right?
Asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer. You can answer.
I was asking to sell my story to publications to get the truth out.
But you entered into a negotiation over a non-disclosure agreement, right?
My attorneys did, yes.
And that was your choice, right? Well, you made the decision that you wanted your lawyers to do that, right?
I accepted an offer.
That was your choice, right?
Not necessarily. I wanted to do a press conference.
You would prefer to do the press conference to get no money over making money? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, if I got the story out.
So why didn't you do that?
Because we were running out of time.
You were running out of time to get money, right?
No, to get the story out.
You could have gone out any day of the week, could have walked out of your apartment, out of your ranch home, and given a press conference, right?
I could have.
But you chose not to, right?
I chose to be safe.
You chose to make money, right? Right?
I chose to take the non-disclosure.
And do you recall that in 2016, at the same time that your lawyer was negotiating with Michael Cohen over a non-disclosure agreement, you were also speaking with a reporter from Slate named Jacob Weisberg? Do you recall that?
I recall talking to someone from Slate. I'm not sure the name.
And Slate, am I correct, is a website that runs stories, right?
Yes.
And you told Weisberg that about your supposed affair with President Trump, right?
Yes.
And you told him about the fact that you were negotiating with Michael Cohen for a non-disclosure agreement, right?
Yes.
And Weisberg tried to convince you to let him publish the story, right?
No. Let's see. He was my backup in case the non-disclosure fell through. Not enough time.
He wanted to publish your story, right?
Everyone wanted to publish the story.
But you stopped talking to him when you got the money. You wanted money from him, right?
I stopped talking to numerous people because I signed a non-disclosure, and that was part of the deal.
You could have just let Weisberg publish the story, but you wanted money from Weisberg, right?
I could have had anybody publish that story.
But they weren't willing to give you money, right?
No.
And am I correct, you told Weisberg you were sharing these details because you were afraid that Michael Cohen was stalling on filing the non-disclosure agreement, and after the election he wouldn't pay you, right?
Yes.
You said that as an alternative to be paid for your silence, you wanted to be paid for your story, right?
I don't remember. Can you show me where I said that?
Sure. Can we pull up J45 for the witness and the parties, please, and turn to page 4? We can turn to page 3 in the second paragraph. You can blow that up for the witness. Isn't it correct that you told Weisberg that as an alternative to be paid for your silence, you wanted to be paid for your story, right? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Isn't it correct that you told Weisberg that as an alternative to being paid for your silence, you wanted to be paid for your story, right?
I don't remember saying that exactly, no.
Well, did you tell him that you wanted something to show for your experience?
Yes. I wanted the truth to be printed. with a paper trail of some sort, whether it was an interview or a video or money, that I was telling the truth to protect me.
You wanted money, right?
I wanted the truth to come out.
Well, are you saying you didn't tell Weisberg that as an alternative to being paid for your silence, you wanted to be paid for the story?
I don't remember saying any of that. I just told you that.
Isn't it correct that Weisberg told you that Slate did not pay their sources, but he encouraged you to come forward anyway?
Yes.
But you didn't go forward with him, right?
Because I was offered the NDA.
Even though you would have gotten your story out, you chose not to go with Slate.
Correct. This was a better alternative.
The better alternative was for you to make money, right?
The better alternative was to get my story protected with a paper trail. So my family didn't get hurt if the story was to come out.
And the story, the paper trail was out if the story had gotten out.
Can you repeat that?
And the paper trail was out if the story had gotten out.
Correct. With a target on my back and my family's. It was the perfect solution.
Am I correct? You told Weisberg another one of your motives was your anger about Trump's opposition to abortion and gay marriage.
No.
You don't remember saying that to him?
I don't remember saying that. Bullshit.
I want to direct your attention again to J45 and...
Objection?
And paragraph 2.
There's an objection. Overruled for now.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the objection. Directing your attention to paragraph 2. Isn't it correct you told him another motivation to go public was your anger about Trump's newfound opposition to abortion and gay marriage?
I don't remember saying that. He was opposed to abortion? I don't know.
Isn't it true that what you were telling Weisberg was you either wanted money or you were going to hurt him politically?
No.
Because that's what you thought, wasn't it? You were threatening that you would try to hurt President Trump politically by telling this story if he didn't give you money, right?
False.
And when Michael Cohen was... we can take that down. Thank you. Was not paying you the money he promised to pay you, you were furious, weren't you?
Yes.
And didn't you scream at your lawyer, Keith Davidson, and call him a pussy and tell him you better get money before the election, otherwise you would lose all your leverage and your story would be worth zero? You told him that, didn't you?
Can you show me where I said that?
If we could play what is in evidence as Defendant's Exhibit F17 interview, and if you pull up the transcript at the same time, F17-AT, you can blow up the transcript a little bit, thank you. Sorry, that was a mistake.
It's all right.
Avenatti's lying his ass off, as you know, and I know, and Tina knows. And Stormy knows. And Stormy's lying.
Judge, I'm going to object.
Sustained. Please stop the tape. Please approach.
This has nothing to do with the question that Ms. Nicholas asked. This has no mention of the witness. She's just replaying a tape of a conversation between Michael Cohen.
I have to look at the transcript. I thought this is the one where she's talking about that she's screaming at him.
Nope.
I wanted to say on Tuesday, you guys need to be careful when you put stuff up. Make sure what you're putting up is what you mean to put up. I don't want any mistakes.
I thought this was the transcript. I apologize. There's one where she's calling him a pussy.
See if you can find it.
I will. I apologize. I put up the wrong tape. F17E.
Can we look at the transcript first before we play the tape?
Yes. Can you put up the transcript first, please?
That's the one we're looking for?
Yes, that's it. If you could play that, please.
I just didn't want you to get caught off guard, and I wanted to let you know what was going on behind the scenes. And I would not be the least bit surprised if, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if you see in the next couple days that Gina Rodriguez's boyfriend goes out in the media and tells a story that Stormy Daniels, in the weeks prior to the election was, basically yelling and screaming and calling me a pussy.
Can I ask you a question? Right.
No, hold on one second. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he comes out and says, you know what, Stormy Daniels, she wanted this money more than you can ever imagine. I remember hearing her on the phone saying, "You fucking Keith Davidson, you better settle this goddamn story, because if he loses this election, and he's going to lose, if he loses this election, we lose all fucking leverage. This case is worth zero, and if that happens, I'm going to sue you because you lost this opportunity. So settle this fucking case." That's a far cry. That's a far cry from being, bullied and pushed into settling a case.
Right.
Do you recall that that's what you were saying? That's Keith Davidson. That's your lawyer that you heard on the phone right now, right?
Keith Davidson and Michael Cohen. Correct.
Objection. It doesn't refresh her recollection. She said she doesn't recall.
Sustained.
Do you recall now that you made those statements?
No, I do not, actually. It reminds me I never yelled at Keith Davidson on the phone. This specifically says that Gina's boyfriend was going to go out and tell the story. Not that I was going to do this, because I didn't do this. Sounds like a threat from Keith Davidson.
So if Keith Davidson said that, he was lying?
Objection.
Sustained.
But you got $130,000, right?
I didn't. That was the payment.
That was the payment that
I got a portion of it.
was negotiated on your behalf, right?
Correct.
And in return for that $130,000, you signed an agreement that you would not tell your story publicly, right?
Yes.
I want to put up on the screen People's Exhibit 276, which is the settlement agreement. You can show that to all. It's in evidence. If we could blow up the top, the heading of it, please. You described this document on direct examination as a contract between people or parties to keep information secret, right? Do you recall saying that?
Yes, it's a contract.
And you understand that a contract is a legal agreement, right?
Well, I'm not an attorney, but yes.
And it was called a confidential settlement agreement in mutual release, assignment of copyright, and non-disparagement agreement, right?
That's what it says, yes.
And if we look in the first paragraph, if you could blow up the first paragraph, please. This paragraph talks about that there is a settlement agreement and a mutual release between two parties whose names are acknowledged in the side agreement, right?
Yes.
If we can look at the second paragraph, please. It says recitals. These are the things that are then being agreed to by the parties about the facts, right? Do you understand that?
Yes.
And it said that prior to entering into this agreement, you had, quote, come into possession of some confidential information, right?
Yes.
And they're related to the other party, the defendant to this agreement, right?
Yes.
We can go to the next paragraph. And you had claimed that you had been damaged. The other party, the defendant, claimed that he had been damaged, and you were going to have released claims, right?
Like I said, I'm not an attorney, so I'm reading this quickly, and I signed this based upon what my attorney suggested that I do.
Okay, but you read it, didn't you?
Yeah.
We can go to the next paragraph. And this is talking about that you guys were agreeing to sell or transfer those rights, right?
Any property and property rights, yes.
We can go to the next paragraph. And this is saying that the parties are agreeing that this will be kept confidential thereafter, right?
Yes.
Because this was a confidentiality agreement, right?
Yes.
And you had referred to it as an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement, right?
Yes.
We can go to the next paragraph. And this said that the parties want to avoid the expense of litigation, and so you were willing to settle any disputes between yourselves, right?
Yes.
And you were releasing any claims against each other, right?
Yes.
We can go to the next paragraph. It is said that all things that have been said here are integral. They're an important part of this agreement, right?
I'm not exactly sure what it means, but...
Okay, so there were some of the provisions in this contract, right?
Yes.
And the contract went on for many, many pages, right?
Yes.
And what you've been saying here is you're not a lawyer and these were legal terms and you didn't understand, or you don't feel that you're able to discuss all these legal terms, right?
Not without speaking to an attorney, no.
And lawyers negotiated this document, right?
Yes.
Your lawyer, you had negotiated it, and Michael Cohen negotiated, right?
That's what I was led to believe.
Because you understood that this was a legal matter that was being settled in a legal contract, right?
Yes. Fine, okay.
So now, on January 10th, 2018, the Wall Street Journal published an article that talked about this settlement agreement, right?
I need to make sure that that was the right date, but yes, in January of 18. I'm not sure of the exact date.
Can we pull up P1A1 in evidence? See the date there?
It says January 12th.
January 12th, sorry. But you knew about that article that was coming out before, didn't you?
Keith Davidson said something that was coming out.
All right. Am I correct that on January 10th, 2018, you signed a statement saying you had not had sex with President Trump, right?
Yes.
If we could put up People's 277, this was that statement, right?
Yes.
And you stayed in there. That was on January 10th, 2018. You put up that statement, right?
That's the day that they sent it to me? Yes.
Well, you signed it. That's your signature on it, right?
I don't remember what day I signed it, but that's the day they sent it to me.
Okay, but that is your signature, right?
Yes.
You stayed in there. I recently became aware that certain news outlets are alleging that I had a sexual and/or romantic affair with Donald Trump many, many years ago. Because it was many, many, many years ago, right?
At this time, it was 12 years.
Well, that's many, many, many years before, right?
A lot of manys, but okay.
Then you go on. I am stating with complete clarity that this is absolutely false, right? This is what you wrote in there.
Yes.
My involvement with Donald Trump was limited to a few public appearances and nothing more, correct?
Yes.
When I met Donald Trump, he was gracious, professional, and a complete gentleman to me and everyone in my presence. That's what you wrote, right?
Well, to be clear, I did not write this.
Well, you signed this statement, right?
I signed it. It was given to me, and I was told that I had to sign it.
Then you said, rumors that I've received hush money from Donald Trump are completely false, correct? That's what you said.
Correct. Because it was not a rumor, it was the truth. Very different.
If indeed I did have a relationship with Donald Trump, trust me, you wouldn't be reading about it in the news, you would be reading about it in my book. But the fact of the matter is, these stories are not true. And then you signed that document, correct?
Yes.
We can take that down. Thank you. Am I correct that 21 days later you put out another statement like that?
Michael Cohen released a statement, yes.
And you signed it, right?
But I didn't release it.
But you signed it, right?
Yes.
If we could put up People's 278 in evidence, that could be shown to everybody. On January 30th, again, you denied that you ever had a sexual relationship with Donald Trump, right?
Yes.
You said, over the past few weeks, I've been asked countless times to comment on reports of an alleged sexual relationship I had with Donald Trump many, many, many years ago. The fact of the matter is that each party to this alleged affair denied its existence in 2006, 2011, 2016, 2017, and now again in 2018. I am not denying this affair because I was paid hush money, as has been reported in overseas-owned tabloids. I am denying this affair because it never happened. I will have no further comment on this matter. Please feel free to check me out at Instagram at Stormy Daniels. Right?
That's what it says.
That's what you signed, right?
Correct.
Am I correct that Michael Cohen had been pushing to get you to sign this, right? That's what you're saying?
Via Keith Davidson.
I am.
I never spoke to Michael Cohen directly.
And you understood that in 2018, President Trump was denying this relationship, right?
Yes.
And he wanted you to deny it as well, right?
Yes.
And he was not running for election at that point in 2018, was he?
No.
There was no election in 2018, right?
No.
He was already president, right?
Yes.
But he was concerned. You understood he was concerned about his family, right?
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
Can't.
You can.
I never mentioned anything about his family.
Okay. But there was nothing about an election going on then, right?
No.
And you understood also that President Trump has a brand, right?
Yes.
And you understood that he is concerned about protecting his brand and his image, right?
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
I wouldn't know what he wants to protect.
Well, you claimed that you had discussions about business with Mr. Trump, right?
Yes. And he never expressed concern about his brand.
Didn't you claim, don't you tell a story that he talked about creating an image that was successful?
He implied it.
And that's his brand, right?
Yes.
So even though you had agreed that you would not discuss this supposed story, and you had received a lot of money for that agreement, you then decided you wanted to publicly say that you had sex with President Trump, right?
No. Nobody would ever want to publicly say that. I wanted to publicly defend myself after people attacking me after Michael Cohen told about the story.
Well, you wanted to make more money, right?
No. That's not why I did the 60 Minutes. For free?
Well, you hired Michael Avenatti to be your new lawyer, right?
Yes.
And then you gave an interview to Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes, right?
I did.
That was televised in 2018, right?
Yes.
In that interview, you told the world about what you claimed had happened with President Trump, correct?
Right. And I was not compensated.
And you were not paid for that interview, right?
Correct.
And you really want to keep saying that, right?
Yes.
But the interview generated a ton of publicity for you, didn't it?
Lots of bad publicity, yes.
A ton of publicity, right?
Yes.
And your attorney, Michael Avenatti, hated Trump and announced publicly that he wanted to run to be the president of the United States himself, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, Michael Avenatti was helping you to get all this publicity, right?
No.
Well, didn't he arrange for you to go on CNN?
He arranged for me to go on CNN and The View. Everything else he took for himself.
And you knew that getting a lot of free publicity off your story would allow you then to make lots of more money off of your story about President Trump, right?
I actually didn't. I was completely unprepared for how far that went.
Well, giving the Anderson Cooper interview, you were able to negotiate a book contract, right?
Yes.
And it was for $800,000, right?
Yes.
So now you were able to sell your story for $800,000, right?
I sold my life story, yes.
And that was in addition to the $130,000 that you had been paid previously, right?
I didn't receive $130,000, though.
You were paid, but you had to give some of it to Gina Rodriguez and some of it to Keith Davidson, right?
Okay, yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And so now you had been paid $930,000, almost $1 million for selling the story, right?
I also didn't receive the $800,000.
Well, that's what you had contracted to and agreed to get paid, right?
Minus commissions and what was stolen from me.
Okay, but that's what you had sold your story for, right?
Correct.
Am I correct that the centerpiece of your book is about your story about supposedly having sex with President Trump?
No.
Well, you believe that was the reason people would buy your book, was to read your description about sex with Donald Trump, didn't you?
Sadly, I thought that's what a lot of people would turn to first. Luckily, the start of my story started when I was 2 years old.
Chapter 3 started with a joke about whether the reader skips right there and started with the chapter about President Trump, right?
Yes.
That's because that's what you believed people were going to do, that they would buy the book just for that story.
I don't know. Sad.
Well, that's your book. You wrote it.
I did write it.
And after you wrote the book, you capitalized even more on the story. You were selling by doing a strip club tour called the Make America Horny Tour.
I did not name that tour, and I fought it tooth and nail.
That tour was the tour that went on. You spent a couple years doing that.
It was a job I had already been doing. Most of those clubs I did 4 or 5 times before that. Several of those clubs were in place before the book.
But it was named the Make America Horny Tour?
That's what the publicist called it.
Can we show J15?
I'm sorry. Am I talking too fast?
It would be nice if you slowed down a bit. That was for your tour?
Yes.
Can we admit it?
J15 is admitted into evidence.
We can show that. You advertised your tour with a picture of you and President Trump together from the golf tournament?
False. I have no choice how the club advertises, and I never posted this.
You did post the Make America Horny Tour.
I never used that tagline. I hated it.
You continued this strip tour in 2018 and 2019, right?
Yes. I continued doing my job, dancing at clubs, which I've done through 2001.
And you traveled throughout America on this Make America Horny Tour, right?
Yes.
And you were selling yourself to the people who hated President Trump as someone who could get President Trump indicted, right?
I was not selling myself to anyone. I was performing at clubs, and whoever wanted to pay admission. It was not geared towards people only allowed in who hated somebody. These were strip club patrons who had seen me dance. They were fans of my work. A lot of people I knew from 10 years before.
Am I correct that you said your fan base was completely different and that the middle-aged white men who used to populate your show and buy your movies were gone, and in their place were now the so-called resistance, women, gay couples, immigrants, and other social liberals who despise Trump? You said it's pretty much these type of women and it was angry. Do you recall saying that?
I did. The climate in the clubs certainly changed. I was not selling myself to a certain demographic. I was certainly going on stage and doing the shows I had done since I was 21 years old.
But now you had a new fan base and you were able to get your shows sold.
I was doing the same job I've always done.
You also got a job on a reality show called The Surreal Life.
Yes.
You promoted interviews on the show saying you were doing the show so you could tell your whole story, right?
Yes.
When you said your story, that was supposedly the story of you having sex with Donald Trump?
It was the full story of my life and what I had been through all of this.
When you did that and you were promoting your story, you say, then I get to tell the story from our side, without editors or posing or stripping. That was the reason I wrote the book Full Disclosure. People still ask me questions that were in the book. I learned America doesn't read, so you have to put it on reality TV. That was the story you wanted to tell, right?
Yes.
And the story, principally, in Full Disclosure, was your story about having sex with Donald Trump, right?
It was my entire life story.
And you've tweeted you made $1 million between the book deal and The Surreal Life, right?
Yes.
You made $200,000 just from appearing on The Surreal Life, right?
Yes.
And you also participated in making an NBC documentary about yourself, which aired on television just recently, right?
Yes.
And that involves several years of filming and interviews of you, right?
Yes.
In order to get you to cooperate with that documentary, the documentary writers paid you for the rights to your book deal, right?
They didn't have to get to me to cooperate. I initially started filming myself.
And then you gave that over, the filming. You were having an affair with the guy who was filming you, right?
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
There was 17 people who shot footage of that, including one of them is my husband.
And you started having an affair when you were filming it, right?
There was one of the cameramen, and we started dating, and he stopped filming as soon as we started dating.
You were married to someone else at the time?
I was separated from my husband.
And you were, in fact, paid $125,000 by the documentary people, right?
No, I was not.
Well, didn't you receive $125,000 for the rights to your book?
Nope, not yet.
You've been promised that, you're saying.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You're saying you were promised that, but you haven't received all the money?
I haven't received all the payments, no.
Okay, how much of it have you received?
They gave me $100,000 for back footage, but I was not paid for the interview.
But you were paid for the rights to your book, right?
That was part of my contract. You have to ask my attorney, who's sitting there, who did the deal.
Okay, but you received $120,000 from the documentary people, right?
A lot of it was footage that I had to reimburse cameramen for.
So the answer is yes.
Not exactly. You're trying to trick me into saying something that's not entirely true.
You are still grossing over $125,000, right?
Supposed to be.
Where did you deposit that money?
Into my business account.
You've also been holding viewing parties at bars to view the documentary, right?
Yes.
And you've been selling tickets to that, right?
Yes.
It's another way you're making money off the documentary and off this story, right?
Which I haven't actually made any profit. It covers my travel, expenses, and security. No profit.
When you say covers your travel and expenses, you're traveling to go to those viewing parties, right?
Yes. It's all part of the promotion for the film.
And you have become a hero at those parties to Trump haters, right?
I don't know. I don't speak for other people.
Well, didn't you say, people come up and they're so emotional and put so much on me. They're like, you're gonna save the world, you're a patriot, you're a hero, right?
You know, you're misconstruing that quote from me. When I was in a strip club, people said that. That's not from a viewing party. That documentary was actually very polarizing for people.
So that is from a strip club that people would come up and say, you are a hero, right?
I am quoting a lot of women who came up to me in 2018 while I was on stage.
But you are continuing to this day to continue making money to sell a story that you promised will put President Trump in jail, right?
No.
Well, isn't it a fact that you keep posting on social media how you're going to be instrumental in putting President Trump in jail?
Show me where I said I would be instrumental in putting President Trump in jail.
All right. If we could show the witness J43, please. Just for the witness and the parties. Do you recognize that as your post?
Yes.
And?
And I don't see the word instrumental or jail.
Your Honor, I offer that in evidence.
Any objections?
No.
Accepted into evidence.
Just 1 month ago, if we could read this, blow it up a little bit more. You were responding to the post, someone else's post there.
Yes. Someone calling me a human toilet? So I capitalized on the joke.
The other post, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, a.k.a. the human toilet, are their star witnesses, right?
Yes.
You said, exactly, making me the best person to flush the orange turd down.
Yes. I didn't see instrumental or jail there. You're putting words in my mouth.
So when you said you were, quote, the best person to flush the orange turd down, you weren't saying you were going to be instrumental in causing him to be convicted of a crime? That was not what you meant?
No.
What does that mean?
I'm pretty sure this is hyperbole. If somebody calls me a toilet, I say I can flush somebody. See how that works? It goes round.
You say you were going to flush President Trump.
I didn't say President Trump. It says orange turd. So, if that's what's interpreted by you...
What do you mean?
I don't know what I mean.
You have no idea.
I'm also not a toilet. So it's all...
I'm asking whether you knew what you meant when you said an orange turd.
Yes, I do.
What did you mean?
I meant I'm not a human toilet. So if they want to make fun of me, I can make fun of them.
You don't want to admit that you meant Mr. Trump.
I absolutely meant Mr. Trump.
Why did you say no?
It doesn't say instrumental. And putting him in jail.
Can we let the witness complete her answers, please?
Did you finish answering the question?
Can you ask your question again?
Can we have that read back?
So, what's the rest of the question? I didn't answer it.
That was your whole answer. You finished answering the question?
I believe so.
All right.
If we could pull up for the witness J43, J44, that's your post, correct?
Yes?
And can we turn to the next page? That's also part of the same post, correct?
I'm not sure.
Well, you see...
Because it says it was suspended.
Yes, but you see how your post is right above all that?
Yes?
And then you're responding to that post below that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I can't tell if there was something missing or not. Though, because it says from a suspended account.
Okay, it says from a suspended account. You understand, you can get old posts before it was suspended on the internet.
If somebody screenshots it.
Do you recognize that as something you responded to?
I respond to hundreds of tweets like this, calling me names. Most, you know, I'm not sure.
Referring to the page before you, Your Honor, I offer that first page in evidence.
I object. Can we approach?
I just can't be sure.
What's happening here? Miss Nicholas is putting in half pieces of these texts, so, sorry, post. They are in response to, as she has just said, threats from other people. Here, she's not clear what she's responding to. Previously, Miss Nicholas has done the same thing on Tuesday. She's put in half of the tweet without putting in what she's responding to. It's creating an impression with the jury. We have Miss Daniels' testimony. She's not sure exactly what she was responding to. Given this scenario, whether it was an account she was responding to, she has responded to hundreds or thousands of threatening tweets.
The other part stands on its own. If you want, we'll call witness on our direct case and say this was...
That wouldn't get it in. You want to get in a portion of her response without letting us know what she was responding to?
I was trying to put in the whole thing. I have the whole thing here.
The whole thing is her response and a deleted post.
But it shows up on the internet from the Wayback Machine. I can put it in on our case.
It still won't tell us what the post was.
It does. Page 2 tells us the post she was responding to.
You can do that later.
I'll do it on my case.
That's fine. Sustained.
A reminder, you are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now resume this reading where we left off.
Ms. Daniels, when President Trump was indicted on this case, you celebrated on Twitter by repeatedly tweeting and pushing merchandise that you were selling in your store, right?
I tweeted about his being indicted, yes. And people wanted to ask how they could support me, so I tweeted the link to my store.
You have an online store where you sell merchandise, right?
Sure.
I want to show you what's been marked as J22, please. You recognize that? That's... the first page is a tweet by you.
Yes.
If you can put up the second page,
Yes.
that's a tweet by you as well?
Yes.
I offer those in evidence, Your Honor.
Accepted into evidence.
If we can display starting on page 1, am I correct that in this first tweet you said, "Thank you to everyone for your support and love. I have so many messages coming in that I can't respond. Also, don't want to spill my champagne," right?
Yes.
What you're saying is you're drinking champagne because you're celebrating that President Trump was indicted, right?
Yes.
Then you said, "Team Stormy merchandise, autograph orders are pouring in too. Thank you for all that as well. But allow a few extra days for shipment," correct?
Yes.
This was on March 30th, you said this, right?
Yes.
That was you selling your merchandise, right?
That is me doing my job,
Selling your merchandise, right?
which is part of my job, yes.
Turn to the next page. Blow up the text first. You said, quote, "New merchandise is now in the store. Yes, photos and comics are autographed. In celebration of new indictments, all orders in the next 45 hours get a free surprise gift," correct?
Correct.
Again, you're celebrating the indictment by selling things from your store, right?
Not unlike Mr. Trump.
Pushing your stuff so that you can sell it, right?
Absolutely. I'm not allowed to sell anybody else's things.
In fact, we can take that down, thank you. You have an online store that has much of the merchandise is you bragging about how you got President Trump indicted, right?
I got President Trump indicted.
Well, aren't you bragging about that in your items that you're selling?
No.
I want to show you what's been marked as J24. That's an item that you sell in your store, is it not?
Yes.
I offer that in evidence, Your Honor.
No objection.
Accepted into evidence.
That's one of the items you sell in your store, something called Stormy Saint of Indictments candle, right?
Yes. That was made from a store in New Orleans.
You're saying that's not you bragging about how you are the saint of a person who got President Trump indicted.
No, I'm not bragging. I think it's funny that the store has made those for me to sell, so I put those on my site.
And you're making $40 on each of those, right?
No, I'm actually making about 7.
You're also selling Team Stormy merchandise, right?
Yes.
I show you what's been marked as J24. I'm sorry, if we could turn to page 2 of that. You recognize that as another item you sell in your store?
Yes.
The next page, you recognize that as another item you sell in your store?
Yes.
I offer all that into evidence.
No objection.
Accepted into evidence.
If we can turn back to page 2 and blow that up, page 2 first. And that's Team Stormy merchandise. That's an example of the Team Stormy merchandise, right?
Yes.
And there are a number of them, right?
Yes.
And Team Stormy is the side who's opposed to President Trump?
It is whoever is on my side.
And your side means your side against President Trump, right?
Not exclusively.
And if we turn to the next page, you have a $30 comic book called Stormy Daniels Political Power Comic Book, right?
Yes.
And when you are talking about political power, you're talking about fighting against President Trump, right?
Keeping in mind, I did not write this comic book.
But you are selling it, right?
Yes.
So we can take all that down, please. Thank you. A large part of your livelihood for a bunch of years now has been making money off the story that you had sex with President Trump, and that will help President Trump be convicted, right?
No.
Well, you testified on direct examination that there are 2 books you're working on right now, right?
Yes.
And what are those books about?
One is called Rock Star Porn Star. It is about my partner. He's a musician who had become a porn star. And the other one is a novel about a girl who grew up in New Orleans. It's nonfiction. I'm sorry, it's fiction.
And did that person, that girl in the novel, have an affair with the presidential candidate?
No.
And do you plan to continue to make money off of selling your story?
I plan to continue to do my job and to fund my extraordinary legal bills.
And there's another way you're making money now, which is by telling people that you have the ability to communicate with ghosts and dead people, right?
I work on a television show called, well, the title had changed, but it used to be called Spooky Babes.
Well, my question was, are you making money by telling people that you have the ability to communicate with ghosts and dead people?
Well, I am making money. Well, I haven't made any money yet, but the idea is to make money on a television show about the paranormal and UFOs and the unexplained.
Well, you've made a show and a podcast claiming that you can speak to dead people, right?
I have been on lots of podcasts.
Well, my question...
Which podcast are you referring to?
Are you saying you have not made a show or a podcast telling people that you can speak to dead people?
Yes. We are talking about the paranormal, yes.
And you also claimed that you lived on a house in New Orleans that was haunted, and that the spirits that are in the house attacked your boyfriend and held him underwater, right?
Yes, so the house has some very unexplained activity. We brought in the experts, people to measure the electromagnetic fields, the religious experts, scientists, people to check for gas leaks. So, yeah, it was a lot of interesting and unexplained activity. So I created a whole entire show.
Your Honor...
A lot of the activity was completely debunked, as you know. A giant possum that was under the house, for instance.
Your Honor, I move to strike all of that now and ask that the witness be instructed to answer the question.
No. Overruled.
And so my question was that you claimed you lived in a house in New Orleans that was haunted and that spirits attacked your boyfriend. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you say your boyfriend attacked you, right?
Yes.
And isn't it a fact that you were the one who attacked your boyfriend?
Objection.
Sustained. Counselor, we discussed this.
No, we did not. Not about this, Your Honor. But, Your Honor, this is not the same thing.
Please move on.
And shortly thereafter, your boyfriend moved out, right?
Define shortly?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well, didn't your boyfriend question your sanity?
Objection.
Sustained.
And you've been making money off your claims that you are a medium and that you can talk to the dead, right?
I am making money I'm part of a ghost hunting team that we go into locations, yeah.
And you read tarot cards for your clients, correct?
Yeah, a lot of my fans like to do things called high tea and tarot with Stormy Daniels, and we read tarot cards together.
And you charge people for that, right?
Yes.
And you claim to be able to speak to people's dead relatives, right?
I make them agree that it's all entertainment, right?
And that's what you charge them for?
Yes.
But you tell people that that's what you can do, right? Speak with their dead relatives, right?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer.
Yes.
And that's what you've made money off of, right?
One of the ways, yes.
All right, so now before you started making a living talking with dead people and selling your story about President Trump, you are an actress, a porn actress, right?
Yes.
And you've acted in porn movies in 200 sex films, right?
Including compilations.
And you've also written and directed 150 sex films, you said, in your direct, is that correct?
Give or take.
And so this was your career for over 20 years, writing, acting, and directing sex films, right?
Yes.
So you have a lot of experience in making phony stories about sex appear to be real, right?
Wow. That's not how I would put it. The sex in the films, it's very much real, just like what happened to me in that room.
All right, but you're making fictionalized stories about sex. You write those stories.
No, the sex is real. The character names might be different, but the sex is very real. That's why it's pornography, and it's a B-movie.
Okay, but you testified and direct that these films have plots, right?
Some of them do, yes.
And the plots are fake, right?
Some of them. Some of them are based on the truth.
And they are movies, right?
Of course.
And you've been writing these stories about sex, right?
Yes.
And then you act them out, right?
Sometimes.
And you have...
Sometimes I just direct.
And you have a lot of experience in memorizing these fictional stories and repeating them, right?
I have of experience in repeating stories and of memorizing stories. I do a lot of that, but not just about sex. I'm pretty sure we can all do that.
And you bragged about how good you are about writing porn movies and writing really good stories and writing really good dialogue, right?
Yes.
And now you have a story you've been telling about having sex with President Trump, right?
And if the story was untrue, I would have written it to be a lot better.
Because you're a good screenwriter, aren't you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Because you are a good story writer, right?
I'm a good screenwriter.
And that story was enough. You made that real enough sounding to make you millions of dollars, right?
I didn't have to write this one.
But it has made you millions of dollars, right?
No.
So you're saying now that you could have written a better story and made more money?
I'm saying I didn't make $1 million, and I didn't write this story.
Well, you made over $1 million on your book and the film and the surreal life, right?
Well, some money amassed, but that's not millions.
And you've also made money selling merchandise, right?
Yes.
And you made money on your 2-year tour of sex clubs, right?
I don't work in sex clubs. I work in strip clubs, so that's a big difference.
You made money on your 2-year tour working in strip clubs, right?
Yes.
And you made money from the documentary, right?
Yes.
Okay, and when you prepared for your testimony with the prosecutor in this case, you had a number of meetings with them, right?
Yes.
And they told you that they wanted you to testify to lots of details so your story would sound credible, right?
Yes.
And do you recall that when you testified on direct examination, you gave a whole description of what you say the tile in President Trump's hotel suite looked like, right?
Yes.
And you included what you said the tile on the floor looked like, that it was black and white, right?
Yes.
And then Ms. Hoffinger asked you, did you mention anything about the floor? Do you recall her asking you that?
I think so.
And you responded, the black and white tile? And she asked, did you mention that? Do you recall that?
Yeah.
And that had been part of your prep, that you were supposed to include certain details in your testimony, right?
There is nothing wrong with preparing a witness. I would hope that any attorney would do that.
Okay, that wasn't my question. My question was...
About the tile.
That had been part of your prep, that you were supposed to include certain details in your testimony, right?
Truthful facts, yes. Don't forget the facts. That's all I was ever told to do.
And those were details that matched what you wrote in your book, right?
I would have to see, but probably.
Well, you were prepped so that, with the prosecutor, so that you would try to match things to your book so that you would look more credible, right?
Well, I don't need to match things to my book because it's the same story. And my story hasn't changed when it comes to those details.
And you know that there's no way to check on the details of what you claimed happened, right?
No, I did not know that.
Well, this supposed sexual encounter that you testified about supposedly occurred 18 years ago, right?
Yes.
And it was just you, supposedly, and President Trump in the hotel suite, right?
And his bodyguard.
His bodyguard, you said, was outside the hotel suite, right?
With the doors open, and it was on the same floor.
You said the doors were open a crack, right?
And then I opened it. He walked in, and the same thing when I exited.
Well, he didn't walk in, right?
No, but he stood right there, and he watched me walk in.
And he was standing outside the doors, right?
Yes.
And you said in your book that the suite took the entire floor of the hotel?
I don't know if it took the whole floor, but it had its own elevator.
So you got on the elevator, and that was the only suite there.
It was right in front of me.
Okay, and
And to be fair, I don't know what was behind me.
all right. Now, in fact, your story about what happened between you and President Trump has changed a lot over the years, hasn't it?
No.
Well, let's talk about your story. You said you met President Trump at a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, right?
Yes.
And that tournament was called the American Century Championship, right?
I'm not sure.
And there were a lot of celebrities and sports figures at that celebrity golf tournament, right?
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know.
Dan Quayle?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Drew Brees?
Who?
Drew Brees.
Oh, I have no idea.
Charles Barkley?
Yes.
Ben Roethlisberger?
Yes.
And there were many, many other celebrities there too, right?
Yes.
And the company you worked for, Wicked Production, was one of the sponsors of the golf tournament?
Wicked Pictures?
And there was a golf gift room where there was a swag that was given out by various sponsors of the tournament?
Yes.
And you and the other porn stars who were there took photographs of yourself with a lot of the celebrities, right?
We didn't take the photos. The people who worked there did. Yes. Yes, but yes.
The people who worked for Wicked Pictures were taking photographs?
And for the golf tournament, yeah.
And for the golf tournament. And you said on direct you took pictures with every celebrity that came in there, right?
Every celebrity that came in to talk to me, I took a photograph with. I don't remember all of their names.
And you said that there were dozens of celebrities that you took pictures with, right?
I would say so, yes.
So the picture that you have, or that was in evidence of you with President Trump, was just one of the dozens of pictures you took with celebrities, right?
Yes.
And it was taken at a public place, right?
Yes.
And there were no other pictures?
Semi-publicly?
And there were no other pictures of you with President Trump, right?
Yeah, right.
And you testified on direct that you spoke with President Trump in the gift room, and that after he left, his bodyguard, Keith Schiller, came back and asked you for dinner, to dinner, right?
They hadn't completely left. He walked back.
Keith Schiller walked back.
Yes.
And he's the one who asked you to dinner, right?
He asked me on behalf. He didn't ask me to go to dinner with him.
He's the one who spoke to you, right?
Yes.
Keith Schiller, according to you...
He didn't say his name was Keith Schiller. He said, I work for Mr. Trump.
Okay, but it wasn't President Trump, according to your testimony, who asked you to dinner. It was his bodyguard.
Right.
And your testimony was that you said, fuck no, that you didn't want to go, right?
Right.
But you gave Keith Schiller your phone number anyway, and you supposedly entered your phone number, his phone number, into your contacts, right?
Correct.
According to you, later, Mike Mosley, your manager at the time, told you that you should go to dinner at that time, right?
Correct.
But this is a totally different story than what you told in 2011, isn't it?
No.
Well, in 2011, you gave an interview with In Touch magazine, right?
Yes.
And you said on direct that it was for only 15 minutes?
For 15 to 20 minutes. I was on a phone call.
Wasn't it more like an hour?
I don't think so.
And didn't you tell In Touch magazine that Donald Trump himself asked you if you would have dinner with him?
I don't remember saying that. It was Keith.
All right. If we could show the witness and the parties J28, page 3. And am I correct that you said to In Touch magazine that when you first met Donald Trump, it was actually on the golf course?
Yes.
And that later he was in the gift room, he came to talk to me and asked for my number and I gave it to him. Do you remember saying that to In Touch magazine?
Yes.
So you said that in that magazine in 2011, you said it was Donald Trump who asked for your number, right? Not Keith Schiller.
I didn't specify. I left out the names of all the other people not to get them involved. That's why I specifically said just he asked.
All right.
But he was there. they were together.
All right, so you didn't say the first time I met him was actually on the golf course, right? You said that?
Uh-huh.
And when you said that you were referring to Donald Trump, right?
Keith was there as well, yes.
And you said he was introduced to everyone, and that's Donald Trump, right?
Yes.
And you said he kept looking at me. And then we ended up riding to another hole in the same golf cart together, and he's like, I want to come talk to you later, right?
Uh-huh.
That's what you told them?
Yes?
And that was still President Trump, right?
Yes.
So still the same person you were talking about?
Yes, which he did. He came to talk to me later.
And then later, when he came to the gift room, he came to talk to me. He asked for my number, and I did give it to him. That's still President Trump, right?
I gave my number to his bodyguard on his behalf. Yes.
Well, that's not what you said in 2011.
I didn't specify in 2011.
Well, you haven't mentioned a bodyguard in that paragraph, have you?
No.
The only he you were talking about...
They asked me not to mention other people.
Can we let the witness finish?
Please.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You can finish your answer. Do you want to hear the question again?
Yes, sorry.
Can you read back the question? All right, you can finish your answer.
Okay. They tried to get me to mention other people when they asked me who asked for whose number, or whatever, but it was Keith. He was standing there. He was always with President Trump.
All right, so your testimony now is that the reporter didn't want you to mention the name Keith.
It wasn't the reporter.
Who was it?
My publicist. He didn't want his name mentioned.
Okay, so if we can...
Sorry, ex-publicist, sorry.
If we can skip down to the last paragraph. So you say, I went up to the room and I was met outside by his bodyguard, Keith.
Keith, yes.
So you mentioned Keith's name, right?
Yes.
But you didn't mention it in the first paragraph, right?
Right.
In the first paragraph, you were talking about President Trump, right?
It even says here, that's how I got in touch with him. I never had Donald's telephone number. I always used Keith.
My question was, in the first paragraph, you were only talking about President Trump, right?
No.
Well, that's the only reference.
They were always together, like this.
But you didn't say that in 2011.
When I give my number to someone and vice versa, it goes through my manager or bodyguard. Anyone that has security or a handler knows that they are a unit.
Your Honor, I move to strike.
It's her answer, Your Honor.
Overruled.
And in your 2011 interview with In Touch magazine, you said that, well, you testified yesterday that when you were asked to dinner, you said no fucking way, right? That's what you testified on Tuesday, right?
Correct.
But in your 2011 interview with In Touch magazine, you said that Donald Trump himself asked you if you would have dinner with him, right?
Like I said, a bodyguard or a handler is a unit.
And...
Someone who is speaking on behalf is the same as being asked directly.
And you told the interview that you said, of course, right?
Uh-huh.
Right, so you said, then he asked me if I wanted to have dinner that night, and I was like, yeah, of course, right?
Yes. Those were the words of my publicist, actually, who's said to go out to dinner with him. Look, he's fascinating. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, that's what you said, that you responded to President Trump that night, right?
This is an entertainment magazine. It's very short and frivolous, and a very vast difference between someone who is a reality TV star and the president. This is an abbreviated, entertaining version of the events.
Now, you were saying that you lied in 2011 when you made this story, when you were telling this story, right?
Sustained.
Okay, you were telling the truth when you gave this story, this interview?
It was minus some details. It was a short interview.
And then you further told the interviewer, who would pass up an opportunity to talk to someone so interesting, right?
Yes.
And so that's what you said in 2011, that you were happy to go to dinner with him. Immediately, you were happy to go to dinner with President Trump, right?
Yes.
And you testified on direct examination on Tuesday that when you supposedly went to President Trump's hotel room, you thought you were going out for dinner, right?
Yes.
But your story is that even though you spent over 3 hours in the hotel room, you never got any dinner, right?
We never got any food. We never ate, no.
And you previously said that you specifically remember this because your stomach was growling, right?
Yes.
And you wrote in your book, plus I was freaking hungry. I needed a bowl of pretzels at least if I was going to sit through this. And you said there was going to be dinner, I thought. This monologue went on for a good 10 or 15 minutes, which is an eternity when your stomach is growling and you are hungry.
Yes.
And you're saying that this was a big deal, that you didn't get dinner, right?
I was invited. It was dinner time. I was running hungry, yeah. We talked about ordering food or going down to get food, and we never got to eat. It was dinner time, and we never ate.
And you made a big point of that on numerous interviews, right?
Yeah. I went to go to dinner, and I didn't get dinner.
And you gave an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, right?
Yes.
And you said, actually, we never had dinner. Like, he lied to me. I'm very food motivated. That's why I stayed and held out for so long, because I was told there would be snacks. I was starving. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
So this was a clear memory that you had, that you were not fed dinner and you were starving, right?
Right. It was dinner time. I was invited to dinner, but I never actually saw any food.
But in your 2011 interview with In Touch magazine, you said the opposite, didn't you?
I never said we ate.
No?
No.
So I direct your attention, if we could put up again.
I remember ordering or asking to order.
And do you recall that you said that you had dinner with President Trump while you talked about whether he would put you on The Apprentice?
Uh-huh. I didn't have anything here.
I'm asking you if you recall that.
I don't. I need to see what I said.
All right, so I direct your attention to J28, page 4. Look at the bottom of the page. Do you recall being asked, so this is all conversation while you were eating? And you responded, yeah, like before, during, and after. We hung out for quite a while, a few hours at least, right?
What is this form? What is this from? Okay.
Do you recall being asked that and given the answer?
I don't recall exactly. No.
Okay, are you saying you didn't say that?
I don't remember saying that.
And if we could direct your attention to the bottom of page 7?
Page 7.
And you recall being asked, again, so this was all during dinner? And you responding, yeah, during, after, yeah, it was definitely the biggest, longest topic of conversation.
Yes.
How he could get me on.
And it was dinner. I was invited to dinner, and it was dinner time. I maintained that I didn't see any food. We didn't go down. We never left the room to go down to dinner, like I said. My story is the same.
So you did say that. You were asked that question and you gave that answer.
It was dinner, but we never got food.
So when a reporter asked you this was all during dinner, you're saying during dinner, meaning it was dinner time, but we didn't eat.
Correct. I would have definitely mentioned what I ate in all of these interviews. I would have talked about the food. I'm food motivated.
All right. And do you recall being interviewed by Anderson Cooper on CNN in 2018, right?
Do I remember doing the interview?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you recall that in that interview, you again said you had dinner that night with President Trump in the room?
Can I see what I said exactly?
You don't have any recollection?
I would like to see what I said exactly.
You had testified to all of these details about what the telling of the floor was like on direct examination, but you don't recall what you said in 2018?
Objection.
Sustained.
A reminder, You are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now resume this reading where we left off.
I will show you what's marked as J12 and directing your attention to page 598. Yes, directing your attention to page 598. And in that interview, you said you had dinner in the room, right?
It says, did we go out for dinner? No, we had dinner in the room. Yes. And then I know that I went to explain that I didn't actually ever get to eat dinner. You are showing one sentence of an entire conversation.
You say that in this interview, you said that you... Well, so isn't it correct that Anderson Cooper said to you, did you two go out for dinner that night? You replied no. You had dinner in the room. You replied yes. That was the conversation, right?
Where is the rest of the conversation?
And he said what happened next, right?
Uh-huh.
That was the conversation about dinner, right?
Yes. Where we don't talk about receiving food, what I ate, which I definitely would have talked about.
Okay, but you said you had dinner in the room, right?
I went up to his room to have dinner, yes. We did not have any food, and I did not eat any food.
Okay, so...
And I have maintained that in every interview that I have never actually got my food.
And you are saying...
That has not changed.
So you were saying, like, when you said Anderson Cooper that you had dinner in the room, you really didn't mean that you had dinner. You meant something else, right?
We had dinner time in the room.
Your words don't mean what they say, do they?
Objection.
Sustained.
And you testified on Tuesday that you and President Trump were staying in different hotels, right?
Yes.
He was staying at the Harrah's Hotel.
Yes.
And you were staying at the Harvey Hotel, right?
I don't remember.
Well, the Harvey Hotel was... You understood that the Harvey Hotel and the Harrah's Hotel had a common owner, right?
What?
They had common ownership?
I did not know.
Well, that's where the events were taking place in the golf tournament, right?
I didn't know.
And they are located 1 block from each other, right?
I don't remember.
And so was your testimony on direct that you walked and then took a car to go 1 block?
Uh-huh. I went to a tattoo studio shop first to see my friends, and I was wearing heels, so I took a car the rest of the way.
Okay, and the tattoo studio was 2 blocks away, right?
I don't remember.
And isn't it a fact that you, when you gave an interview to In Touch magazine in 2011, you said that you remember walking from your hotel to his hotel?
I don't remember exactly. Like I said, it was an abbreviated interview. I did make a stop at a tattoo shop for like an hour.
Okay, I will show you what's been marked off as J28. And by the way, this abbreviated interview is 29 pages long, right?
I don't know. I mean, there are photos. Who knows?
And directing your attention to page 4, the bottom paragraph.
Uh-huh. From...
Well, yeah, I want to direct your attention to the top part of this. Just going back a minute, let's see. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the top. Do you recall during that interview, quote, we ended up having dinner in the room. I cannot remember what we ordered. I remember what I had the second time I had dinner with him, but I can't remember what we had. Do you recall saying that?
Hang on.
You said that in that interview, didn't you, Ms. Daniels?
Yeah. It says, I don't remember ordering anything or what I ordered, if anything.
But you say twice there, we had dinner in the room, right?
Yes. Like I said, it was dinner time in the room.
So you were saying that when you said we had dinner, you did not mean that, right?
I'm saying, once again, I had dinner in his room, but we never got our food. I never ate anything.
Okay.
Having dinner with somebody, at least where I'm from, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to put food in your mouth. I'm going to someone's house for dinner. It's dinner time.
And isn't it a fact when you wrote your book, you said you walked from your hotel to President Trump's hotel?
I walked halfway there, actually, I think I went in the opposite direction first.
And you don't say anything in your book about taking a car, right?
I don't remember exactly.
But when you were interviewed by the prosecutors in this case, the first time you told them that President Trump's bodyguard sent a car to pick you up and take you to the room, didn't you?
I don't know how the car got there or who sent it specifically. I have no way of knowing who I was speaking to or who sent the car.
Well, when you testified on Tuesday, you said that you called a car, you said you walked, and then you said you called a car.
I called for a car. I don't know how the car was called. I told them that I was going, that I needed a car. I don't know if they called the car. I don't remember. I know it was way before Uber, obviously.
The details of your story keep changing, right?
No. I took a car from the tattoo shop to his hotel.
Okay, and you testified on direct examination that when you supposedly entered the suite, that President Trump came from the main area of the hotel suite and met you in the foyer, right?
Yes.
And you say that there were the elevator, no, withdrawn. But when you were interviewed in 2011 for In Touch magazine, you said that when you walked into the hotel suite, President Trump was all sprawled out on the couch watching television or something, right?
I don't remember saying that.
Well, if you could look at J28 and directing your attention to page 4, do you recall? Well, let's start at the bottom of page 3. You said, I went in and I was all dressed up because I had just assumed that we were going to dinner, but he meant to have dinner in his room, like he wasn't dressed. And then if I could direct your attention to page 4, to go all out, just lounging. I remember taking a jab at him. I remember saying because he was all sprawled out on the couch watching television or something, and he was wearing pajama pants. Do you remember saying that?
Yes. I walked in. He was on the couch. He heard me come in. He got up. He greeted me in the foyer.
I see. So you say he was all sprawled out on the couch there, and now you're saying, but he got up. That's what you're saying now?
He did both. He greeted me from the foyer. He came from the inside, from where the couches and things were. I assumed he was watching television, but he definitely wasn't getting dressed.
Okay, but you didn't say that in your 2011 interview, right?
No, I did not. Like I said, it was a shorter interview.
Okay, and you testified on direct. Your Honor, is this a good time for a break?
I would like to go a little longer.
You testified on direct that after being in President Trump's hotel suite for several hours, you went to the bathroom, right?
Correct.
And you claim when you came out of the bathroom, he was on the bed in a t-shirt and boxer shorts, right?
Yes.
Just 1 minute before we get to that, I want to go back to where President Trump was when you entered the hotel suite room. Do you recall you wrote a book about this, right?
Yes.
And do you recall that when you opened the door, withdrawn, let's just go back to the room. So you say you came out of the bathroom and he was on the bed in his t-shirt and boxer shorts, right?
Yes.
And according to you, when you saw him sitting on the bed, you became faint. The room started to spin and the blood left your hands and feet, yes?
Yes, it was a shock, a surprise.
So just so I can be clear on what you're saying, you've acted and had sex in over 200 porn movies, right?
150-ish, yes.
And there are naked men and naked women having sex, including yourself, in these movies, right?
Yes.
But according to you, seeing a man sitting on a bed in a t-shirt and boxer shorts was so upsetting that you got lightheaded, blood left your hands and feet, you almost fainted, right?
Yes. When you're not expecting a man twice your age to be in their underwear. I've seen my husband naked almost every day. If I came out of the bathroom and it was not my husband and it was Mr. Trump on the bed, I would probably have the same reaction.
And that made you feel like you were going to faint?
Absolutely. If I came out of the bathroom and saw an older man in his underwear that I wasn't expecting to see there, yeah.
And according to you, earlier that evening, you had been bossing President Trump around and telling him to change his clothes out of pajamas and stop talking about himself, right?
That was hours before, yeah. I guess it was seeing a man in his underwear that you are not expecting to be there when you are not expecting him to be there.
And you were a pretty assertive woman, right?
More so now.
Well, you've been working since you were 18, right?
17.
17. And you've had to take care of yourself, you said, since you were 17, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And some of the places you were working in are pretty tough places to work in, right?
Sometimes.
And you've taken care of yourself that whole time, right?
Mostly, yes.
And you said that even though he was twice your age, you had no problem bossing him around the whole day, right?
Yes.
When I felt... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. When I felt like I had control of the situation and I had an exit, and this was definitely a power shift.
Well, in your book, in fact, you wrote that you had made him your bitch, right?
I did earlier.
Those were your words, right? You made him your bitch?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you are powerful, right?
I used to think so.
But now, because he was supposedly in a t-shirt and boxer shorts, you were so upset that he wanted to have sex with you that you couldn't speak up and say that you didn't want to have sex with him?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
The man who you claimed I made him my bitch, but I can't say no to having sex with him, supposedly, right?
Yes.
This was not the first time in your life someone had made a pass at you, was it?
No.
And you testified on direct examination.
But it was the first time that they had a bodyguard standing outside the door, and they were there in their underwear.
Okay.
And they were twice my age and bigger than me.
Okay, and you understand there is no question pending.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And you testified on direct that Mr. Trump got out of bed and stood between you and the door to the exit of the bedroom and said something like, I thought we were getting somewhere. We were talking and I thought you were serious about what you wanted. If you ever want to get out of that trailer park, those were his words that you said he said?
Yes.
And you said you blacked out, and the next thing you remember was being on the bed and having sex, right?
Yes.
But when you were interviewed in 2011 by In Touch magazine, you told a completely different story, didn't you?
No.
Well, when you were interviewed in 2011, you said that when you came out of the bathroom, Donald Trump was sitting on the bed and said, come here. And you were like, oh, here we go. And then you started kissing and had sex. That's the story you told in 2011, isn't it?
Like I said, there were parts in the middle of that I didn't remember.
Well, isn't that the story you told in 2011, right?
I don't remember exactly what I said.
Okay, I'm going to direct your attention to J28, page 8.
Uh-huh.
And do you recall saying, I had to use the bathroom and I went to the restroom, which was in the bathroom, in the bedroom. Like I said, it was a big suite. I could describe the suite perfectly when I came out. He was sitting on the bed and he was like, come here. And I was like, oh, here we go. And we started kissing. I actually don't even know why I did it, but I do remember while we were having sex, I was like, please don't try to pay me. And then I remember thinking, but if he did, I bet if he did, it would be a lot. That's what you said to In Touch magazine in 2011, right?
Correct. Yes, because I wasn't trying to get money, and he did say, come here.
Nothing about him standing up, right?
No, it's not here. This was an abbreviated article. But he did stand up, and he was between me and the door, and Keith was outside the door. And then I don't remember. And then when we were kissing and he was on top of me, that's what I remember.
You remember what you said to which Ron?
We can only have one person speaking at a time.
So what did you said to In Touch magazine was we started kissing, right?
Uh-huh, yes.
Nothing about him standing up, right?
But it also doesn't say that I got on the bed. This is an abbreviated version. He stood up, we started kissing. It's been edited for clearing.
It doesn't say he stood up, did it?
No, it doesn't say he stood up either.
You said that he said, come here, right?
He did. He said, come here.
Meaning you should come to the bed?
He stood up and said, come here.
It doesn't say that, does it?
No, it doesn't.
And then you said we started kissing, right?
Yes.
Nothing about if you want to get what you want to get, you better go along with this, right?
They left out a lot of stuff because they couldn't fact check it. I do remember them telling me that.
And nothing about a trailer park, right?
No.
And you made all of this up, right?
No.
And by the way, you weren't drinking anything that night.
Just water.
No drugs, right?
Absolutely no.
But you supposedly blacked out, right?
I got lightheaded. I never blacked out. I didn't, hit the floor. Everything was spinning and went black. But no, I wasn't given any drugs. I did not take any drugs. And I don't even believe there was alcohol in the room.
And in 2011, you said that you were fascinated and stimulated by President Trump and had really good banter and that you could tell he was nice, intelligent conversation, right?
It was nice. Intelligent conversation, yes.
That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And nothing about him threatening you with a trailer park, right?
That was after I came out of the bathroom. There was no more conversation. The conversation was intelligent and interesting, and I enjoyed it.
And you were interviewed for Slate magazine by Mr. Weisberg in 2018, right?
I'm not sure what his name.
Okay, let me show you J45. It was a 2018 interview by Jacob Weisberg, right?
Yes, that's what it says.
And this story gets published right after the Wall Street Journal article, right?
I believe so, yes. January 16th.
The Wall Street Journal article, you recall, was on January 12th?
January 12th, yes, ma'am.
On January 12th, 2018, and this was on January 16th to 18, right?
That's what it says.
And am I correct that you told Mr. Weisberg that there was no abuse in what happened with President Trump and that you were not a victim, right?
Yes.
And this is what you were saying in 2018, right?
Yes.
And you said that the worst that Trump had done was break promises you never believed he would fulfill, right?
Yes.
And you told Weisberg that President Trump offered to buy you a condom in Tampa, Florida, and that he wanted to feature you as a contestant on an upcoming season of The Celebrity Apprentice, right?
Yes.
You didn't say anything to Mr. Weisberg about you supposedly blacking out or not remembering how you ended up in bed, right?
Correct.
And you told Weisberg that President Trump offered to buy you a condo in Tampa, Florida, and that he wanted to feature you as a contestant on an upcoming season of The Celebrity Apprentice, right?
Yes.
You didn't say anything to Mr. Weisberg about you supposedly blacking out or not remembering how you ended up in bed, right?
Correct.
And you said the worst thing he did was he didn't give you a condo, right?
Yes, I never wanted a condo.
Oh, you didn't want a condo?
No, not in Tampa, Florida.
Well, you said the worst thing he did was he didn't put you on The Celebrity Apprentice, right?
I said the worst thing that he did was he lied.
And you said nothing about a power imbalance or that you were scared that there was a bodyguard standing outside of the door, right?
No, I said the worst thing that he did was lie. That's my feelings.
Okay, and you were also...
I blame myself.
And you didn't say anything about...
For feeling that way.
And you didn't say anything about feelings that those things that you just described happened?
Can you please let the witness finish, Your Honor?
Overruled. I think she was done. Overruled.
And I'm sorry, what did you say?
You didn't say anything about feeling faint in there when this happened, right?
No, because the question was what Mr. Trump did. And Mr. Trump did not drug me. He did not. That was how I felt. The worst thing that he did was lie in that moment.
Right, and you were also interviewed by Vogue magazine in 2018, right?
Yes.
And isn't it correct that you were asked, did Trump do something that made you feel like you had to have sex with him? And you responded, no, nothing, right?
Yes.
And so in 2018, you said that there was nothing that he did that made you feel like that you had to have sex with him. But on Tuesday, on direct exam, you testified that he made nasty comments and stood over you, and you felt a power shift, right?
I never said he stood over me. He stood in front of me. I was not below him or on the floor.
So you were saying when you testified on Tuesday that his actions made you feel like you had to have sex with him, right?
My own insecurities made me feel that way. I have maintained that he did not put his hands on me. He did not give me any sort of drugs or alcohol, and he did not hold a weapon or hold me at any sort of, threaten me with any sort of item. And I have said that I maintain that. I was not physically threatened or drugged or drunk.
But these nasty, supposed nasty comments that he made and standing up over you, those statements were not what you were saying in 2018, right?
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
Those statements are exactly what I said.
You said...
He said that he thought that I was on the same page about going into the television show. That is exactly what was...
That in 2018?
He lied about that, and he stood in front of me, and he never had any intention of...
My question to you is just, in 2018, you didn't say any of that to anybody, did you?
Which part? That he stood in front of me, and he said, I thought that you wanted to prove that you could do this? That's exactly what he said.
You didn't say that in the Cold article, right? When I asked you about whether you said that to anybody? Do you understand my question?
No, I don't.
Okay, in 2018, you didn't tell the Cold writer that President Trump had supposedly said that to you, did you?
I said that he promised me a part in The Celebrity Apprentice. He thought I was intelligent and would do whatever it takes. My own insecurities in that moment kept me from saying no.
You didn't say that.
I have maintained that he did not physically threaten me in any way.
Okay, you claim that that's in the article, in the Cold article.
I don't know what's in the Cold article, but my story hasn't changed.
You didn't say that then, did you?
I don't know.
And now, in 2024, your story has changed, hasn't it?
No, not at all. You are trying to make me say things that it's changed, but it hasn't changed.
And I want to talk to you about the night after the evening that you claim you had sex with President Trump. So the American Century Championship, which was a golf celebrity tournament, which had celebrities in both hotels, so they had parties and events, right?
Several, yeah.
And in fact, you testified that many of the parties were in your hotel, right?
I don't know which parties were part of the event and not, but there were parties in both hotels.
Well, you testified...
I have no way of knowing which parties were sanctioned for that.
You testified that there was an auction in your hotel of celebrity items. There were a couple of auctions, yeah? And you said there was a nightclub in the hotel.
A bar, restaurant, nightclub things, yeah.
And you testified that, well, you've said that President Trump called you from his bodyguard's phone and invited you to come have drinks with him at the nightclub downstairs in the hotel that night, right?
Yes, I said that. Yes.
And you said you met him in the VIP area and that Trump was there and Ben Roethlisberger and Keith Schiller were there.
Yeah, he was sitting in a booth.
With Roethlisberger?
Yes.
And while you were there, you talked and you went and talked with them, right?
Yes.
And while you were there, you talked about The Apprentice, right?
Very briefly, yes.
And you testified on direct that conversation, that encounter lasted for about 10 minutes, right?
I would say so.
But in your book, you said you were there for about an hour, right?
The conversation, Mr. Trump left first. He was there for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Well, in your book, you didn't say it was max an hour.
Max an hour, yeah.
And President Trump then left you alone with Roethlisberger, right?
Yes.
And you said that at that point, you really believed that President Trump wanted to put you on The Celebrity Apprentice, right?
I did at that time, yes.
And that was because of that conversation, right?
Which conversation?
Well, the conversation in that nightclub, that was one of the conversations, right?
That was one of them, yeah.
And then there were other conversations on the phone as well, right? About that?
I only had 2 conversations by the time at that incident, which was at the nightclub. The one at the night before and one sitting in that moment.
Okay.
So based on those 2 conversations, yes.
And you had other conversations later?
Later.
And you said, you told Jimmy Kimmel, in fact, didn't you, that you thought President Trump thought that it would be great for the ratings, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's what your discussions were with him, right?
That's what he told me, yes.
And that's what you talked about in your phone calls with President Trump, right?
Partially, yes.
And he also talked about that when you went to Trump Tower, right?
Yes.
And by the way, you took a selfie of yourself and your friend in his office in Trump Towers, right?
Well, my friend did.
And that was in 2007, right?
Yes.
But you have no other pictures with President Trump other than that one picture?
Right.
With her?
We took a picture with him at the Trump vodka party and in his office.
And in his office?
I didn't physically take them, my friend did.
The Trump vodka party was a party where he invited lots of minor celebrities, right?
Yes.
And that was all public, right?
Yes.
And then you also went to, but you asked to be, for tickets to the Miss USA pageant, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You also asked for tickets to the Miss USA beauty pageant, right?
Yes.
And you went with your agent too, right?
Yes, I went with my agent.
And that was also in public, right?
Yes, but I did not speak to him there.
Miss Necklace, would you like to take a break?
Yes.
All right, jurors, let's go ahead and take our morning break. Let's take about 15 minutes. You can step out.
A reminder, you are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now resume this reading where we left off.
Remain seated. Come to order. Part 59 is back in session.
Can we get the witness, Miss Necklace?
Yes, yes.
Witness entering.
Okay, let's get the jury, please.
All rise. Jury entering.
Please be seated. Miss Necklace?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Daniels, before we took the break, we were talking about you being at a nightclub with President Trump and Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, President Trump left, and he left you alone with Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Yes.
And you testified on your cross-examination just a little while ago. I was asking questions about Make America Horny Tour, right?
Yes.
And you said you hated that name, right?
Yes.
And that you never posted it yourself, right?
I never made any of those flyers.
And you never posted it on your social media, you testified, right?
Sometimes they made me retweet them, but I never made any of the flyers and posted them on my own accord.
You said sometimes you may have had to retweet them, but that's it, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I fired a webmaster for posting them.
I want to direct your attention to showing you what has been marked as J49. Susan, do you recognize that as coming from your Instagram account?
Yes.
I will offer that into evidence, Your Honor.
No objection.
Accepted into evidence.
And that's posted on your Instagram account, right?
Yes, it was posted from Deja Vu.
And that was February 2nd, 2018, is that correct?
February 24th. Oh, sorry, yes.
And there is a picture of you and that you're going to be somewhere on February 24th, right?
Yes.
And it says Stormy Daniels performing live Make America Horny Again 2018 tour, right?
Yes.
And that's you posing for that picture, right?
Well, it's a flyer made up of a photo that I posed for.
And you posted that on your personal Instagram, right?
Yes. That's not my personal Instagram. That's my business Instagram.
And I want to direct your attention now to J50, which is just for the witness and the parties. Do you recognize that as being another post from your Instagram?
Yes. That's the very first one.
And I offer that into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objections?
No objections.
Accepted into evidence.
And that posted on January 14th, 2018, right?
Yes.
And it says, Stormy Daniels, the Making America Horny Again tour, right?
Yes.
And you posted that on your personal Instagram, right?
That's my public Instagram.
Your public Instagram, right? And you said, see you soon, South Carolina, right?
Yes.
And those are just two of the many you posted, right?
I don't know.
But you were advertising for that tour, right?
For my appearances, yes.
And making money off of that.
Well, that's what we do with tours.
And turning your attention back to the tournament, the celebrity golf tournament, President Trump was the biggest celebrity probably at that tournament, right?
It depends on what you are a fan of.
Well, people recognized him, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, you saw people following him around, right?
Yes, a lot of people are paid to follow him around, I'm sure. I don't know.
And he did very well at that golf tournament, right?
I don't remember.
He was playing golf himself.
He was playing golf. I don't remember what the scores were.
And so, when you saw that, but when he went where he went, people were recognizing who he was, right?
Yes, but
You recognized that.
they recognized me where I went that day, too.
Okay. And according to you, when you went up to his hotel suite, there were double doors to the outside of the hotel before you got into the suite, right?
From the exterior, you mean? The hallway?
Yes.
Yes.
There was... Yes.
Yes, there was a door that was cracked. A door was open, but there was a second wider door.
And so you said Keith Schiller was standing outside of the hotel suite, right?
Yes, he was leaning against the wall by the door.
And when you went in, there was a door to the bedroom, right?
The door to a bedroom was quite a ways away.
What was that?
It was really far away.
Okay. So when you went into the bedroom, it was very far away from where Keith Schiller was, right?
I don't know where he was at that point in time.
You didn't see him inside the suite, did you?
I never saw him inside, no, ma'am.
So you were in the bedroom and the door to the bedroom was closed?
No.
The door to the bedroom was open, but it was very far away from where the front door was?
All the doors were open.
The bedroom was very far away from the front door you just said.
It was just off the living room. Yes.
And you claimed that one of the things that made you feel uncomfortable or feel like you couldn't walk out was that Keith Schiller was standing outside of the...
Objection, that's not the testimony.
Sustained.
Well, that was your testimony, that you were... One of the things that went through your mind and why you couldn't just leave was because Keith Schiller was just outside the hotel suite.
Absolutely. I would have to pass him by to get to the elevator and wait for an elevator, and he was a very large man.
Well, do you recall being interviewed by Vogue magazine in 2018?
Yes.
And do you recall saying to you were asked, did Trump do something that made you feel like you had to have sex with him? And you being empathic, no, nothing. Not once did I ever feel like I was in any sort of physical danger. I'm sure if I had taken off running, he wouldn't have given chase. And even if I had, there's no way that he would have caught me. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
You didn't mention anything, but, oh, there was a bodyguard outside the door, did you?
I don't remember if I did or not. I don't control what parts of quotes they put in magazines and how many details they use. Vogue is an entertainment magazine, and it is a fashion magazine. Sometimes I give too many details.
So you last spoke with President Trump in 2007, correct?
Well, the last time is what you said.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was a long time ago, right?
Yes. Non?
And you never spoke with President Trump in connection with your being paid $130,000 to sell the story, did you?
No.
So you have no personal knowledge about his involvement in that transaction or what he did, do you?
Not directly, no.
And am I correct that you signed the non-disclosure agreement in this case with legal advice?
Yes.
And you did not negotiate that non-disclosure agreement with President Trump, did you?
Not directly. My attorney.
And your lawyer dealt with Michael Cohen, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Cohen paid you, not Mr. Trump, right?
Actually, my attorney paid me.
Okay, but you understand that the money came from Michael Cohen, right?
I know the...
Objection.
Overruled. You can answer.
I know that the money was wired to me from Keith Davidson.
Okay, and did you understand that the money was wired to Keith Davidson?
That's what I understood, but I have no proof.
Okay, then you understand that in this case, President Trump is charged with a crime for how the payment reimbursing Mr. Cohen was labeled on Mr. Trump's books. Do you understand that, right?
I am not an attorney. I don't really understand. I'm just here to answer the questions that are asked of me about specific things that I have knowledge of.
Okay. Even though you tweeted and celebrated about him being indicted, you have no knowledge of what he was indicted for?
There was a lot of indictments.
Your Honor, I move to strike that.
It is responsive, Your Honor.
It is responsive. Overruled.
Okay. You don't know what he was indicted for in this case. You don't have any idea.
Business records?
And you know nothing about the business records, right?
I know nothing about his business records. No. Why would I?
You know nothing about what he does or does not know about the business records, right?
No.
And Miss Daniels, you have changed your story many times, and isn't it a fact that the reason you changed your story many times is because you never had an affair with President Trump, but realized that you could earn money by saying you had an affair, and you've been doing that for 12 years.
Objection to the form.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, I do. Actually, Judge, may we approach for a moment?
Yes.
Judge, I want to be careful. Given your prior rulings, there are two exhibits I would like to put in. Defense exhibits, Miss Nicholas, J2 and J17. They are specifically tweets that she elicited that Miss Daniels wrote and put on her Twitter, but Miss Nicholas did not elicit the tweets to which she was responding, which are both threatening. For example, J2, she specifically asked about it. It was responsive to a threat that she received on that. In fact, the witness answered that, but Miss Nicholas did not put it in evidence. And so, frankly, we feel that the jury needs to have the full context on those. I would like to admit one of them. On the second one, I would like to at least elicit a question about what her tweet was in response to. Certainly, Your Honor has ruled that these types of threats can be elicited in a proper context. They have cross-examined thoroughly on the fact that, one, it attempts to undermine the threat in 2018 in the parking lot. These are in some ways corroborative of that. Second, they have cross-examined extensively about the fact that she was only doing all of this to make money, and even her testimony here in her story is all about money, undermining the fact that there are other issues that have arisen in terms of the threats, and that her whole reason to testify here is not purely about money, and that there have been other costs. In fact, Ms. Nicholas asked about that, and specifically about the money she made, all the money that she made off of this.
Can I see it, the exhibit?
It's J2 and J17. Susan, I don't have a copy for you. It was yours. Here is J2, and then here is J17.
Thank you.
We would like to elicit those. This one here, defense counsel can't use it as both a sword and shield. You can't elicit only what Ms. Daniels said and not show what it is responsive to.
Is there any objection?
Your Honor, I don't have a problem listening that it is a response to a threat. I think that...
Does that matter? I don't think that matters. You did go into these a little bit, and you left the jury with a certain impression. I think it's only fair that the jury should have the full picture of what we are talking about. I'm going to allow it.
In addition, I'm going to seek to show what's already in evidence, which is People's 408B from May of 2024, which we didn't display, that says, if you come after me, I am going after you. Now, with this witness, given the cross-examination that we have heard, I would like to elicit what, if any, effect it has had on her, and what, if anything, being involved in this case and telling her account, what the effect has been on her family, the economical cost, and in terms of other costs. And I think the door has not only been open, but the door has been flung wide open at this point.
We object to that. That would be so highly prejudicial. We asked about what she wrote and the money she made. Now they want to put in evidence a tweet that has nothing to do with her. It had nothing to do with her. They're insinuating it had something to do with her, things strangers have done.
You did a very effective job on your cross-examination of calling into question her motivation. That specifically, you've left the jury with the impression, again, you did a good job, that she is doing all of this for money. She sold her story for money. I think it's fair for the people to try to demonstrate that she has suffered injuries as a result of that and what they look like. I will allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Almost good afternoon, Ms. Daniels. How are you?
Good.
Defense counsel asked you quite a lot of questions yesterday, and perhaps today as well, questioning whether fear was any part of your motivation in entering into the NDA. Do you remember any of those questions?
Objection, Your Honor. Those weren't my questions.
Overruled.
Now, you said in response to questions from defense counsel that you entered into the NDA because of advice from an attorney. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And that your attorney friend said something to you about hiding in plain view?
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit, what that term meant, hiding in plain view, what your understanding is briefly?
And it was not the attorney who was representing me. This is a friend who was just trying to give me advice. And his friend was in the military, used the term, get high, stay high. And it just means if you are out in the open, you're safer. Hiding in plain sight, being out in open, that something won't happen to you if everyone is looking at you.
Okay. And so part of your motivation to enter into the NDA was to make sure this was all documented to keep you safe.
Yes.
And you were also happy to take the money. You are not saying that you were not happy to take the money, right?
No, we are all happy to take money. It was just a bonus.
Now, there was a question today. Ms. Nicholas showed you the NDA, and she walked you through a lot of the legal language in that document. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was a document that you hadn't prepared yourself, right?
No.
And some of it is hard for you to understand.
Yeah.
There was no lawsuit pending at the time, right? Did you threaten to sue Mr. Trump or no?
No.
Now, defense counsel on Tuesday, 2 days ago, asked you to read some text between yourself, withdrawn, asked you to read some text between Gina Rodriguez and someone whose name was Dylan, who you mentioned you didn't know. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And those texts were from June 28th, 2016. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And she had you read from some text. Let's put up People's 171A, please, in evidence. And can you pull up, please, the box where Dylan says, I thought she denounced it previously. Do you see that box? And then the two boxes below that, maybe you could highlight the two boxes below that. These were from June 28th of 2016. I'm sorry, let's do it one box at a time. You see the box? I think it's ending in, it says Fox 38904, I have her. Do you see that box? And do you remember she asked you to read that box that says I have her?
Yes.
Put up the next box now. And do you remember she asked you to read, is she ready to talk? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Can you put up the next box, please? And do you see Dylan asked a question, I thought she denounced it previously. Do you remember she had you read that box?
Yes.
Let's go to the next one, please. And you see, she asked you to read that box that said she'll do it under 2 conditions.
Yes.
Now, let's look at the next box, the very next box. There is a reply from Gina. Can you highlight where she said she never did? Did she ask you to read that box where she said she never did?
I don't think so.
You can take that down. Now, defense counsel asked you a lot of questions about the In Touch article, and you indicated that it was a very light article. Is that right, for entertainment purposes?
Yes.
And can we show just to the witness, please, and to counsel and to the court, the second page of that page 2 of 29? Actually, we may not have it. It is J28. It's a defense exhibit. Just for the witness and counsel and the court, please, the next page. Could you display the next page? Do you see at the bottom where it says this interview has been lightly edited? Do you see that?
Yes.
Did Miss Nicholas ask you about that?
No.
Thank you. You can take that down. Now, Miss Nicholas also asked you a lot of questions about your 60 Minutes interview with Anderson Cooper. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And she put up for you J12. She asked you a lot of questions about it. She asked you a lot of questions about what you did and didn't say in 2018 in some interviews. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And she asked you about your interview with Anderson Cooper. Now, you didn't tell every single detail to Anderson Cooper, did you?
No.
But you mentioned a lot of the details in that interview with him, didn't you?
Objection to the leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well, there was a lot of back and forth in that interview between yourself and Anderson Cooper.
Yes, it was very long.
And defense counsel showed you that J12, the 60 Minutes interview, and asked you some questions about it?
Yes.
We would offer that in evidence now, Your Honor.
Any objections?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
It's heresy statements.
Approach. What does that have to do with the interview? What is it for?
A prior inconsistent statement. They have spent a long time talking about all kinds of inconsistencies. The witness clearly said she didn't tell every detail. There are a lot of details in there which she told him. It is a prior consistent statement to rebut that it is a recent fabrication.
A prior consistent statement?
Miss Nicholas showed the article to her and asked her all sorts of questions. I'm surprised she would object to it being admitted at this point.
I showed it under the clear rules that apply to prior inconsistent statements. Prior consistent statements are only admissible if they were made at the time there was a motive for fabrication. These were made in 2008 when she's selling her story.
They are the same documents. It is the same document you used to impeach her as inconsistent.
I would rely on People versus Davis, a Court of Appeals case which...
Direct me to it. Direct me to the relevant section.
Okay. I need Gedalia for that.
Do you have a copy for us?
No, I don't. And it's 44 New York 2D 269.
No, it starts over here. It has to be before the motive to fabricate started, and particularly this paragraph if the defense argue it was fabricated from the beginning.
Your Honor, it contextualizes the so-called inconsistency they asked about. It's unfairly giving the jury an unfair impression, so it contextualizes it. It shows the entire context given that Ms. Nicholas went through and asked a number of questions about what was told or not told to Anderson Cooper.
I can't read and listen to you guys at the same time.
I apologize. When you're done, I wanted to add one thing.
I understand what the decision says, and it does stand with what you are saying. I'm asking...
If you're admitting it.
I haven't decided yet.
The question is the motive to fabricate. They indicated her motive to fabricate was after 2008. It's more recently. It's the indictments. It's going on these tours. It doesn't have to predate every motive to fabricate. They brought up much later the alleged notice to fabricate.
I would say that's not correct.
I'm going to run on the side of caution and deny the application.
Can we bring out some of the details that are consistent to rebut the inference that out of context there are these inconsistencies?
You can go back to anything that was taken out of context and address it in full context.
I can ask her all the things she did tell.
No. You can go back and address the things that were taken out of context and put them in context.
I should be able to ask what things she did tell him, Anderson Cooper. She didn't tell him all the details. There was a number of details that were asked and answered that she testified to here. I should be able to do exactly what Miss Nicholas did.
That's not the law.
I should be able to ask questions about what was told.
All right, let's continue. Step back. Ms. Hoffinger, you can clarify to the extent that was discussed and to that extent only.
A reminder, you are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now resume this reading where we left off.
Miss Nicholas asked about certain things that you didn't tell Anderson Cooper at the time. Do you remember that?
Yes.
But there were many things that you did tell Anderson Cooper, did you not?
Objection.
Overruled.
And in terms of the context, you did tell Anderson Cooper that you had sex with Mr. Trump in the hotel room.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Your Honor, I think this is not what I asked.
Overruled.
And you did also provide details of what happened in the room, didn't you?
Yes.
And for example, you told him that Mr. Trump never told you to keep it confidential.
Objection, Your Honor.
Please approach.
These are none of the things I asked about. She is just going through generally things that are consistent with what she testified about. I never asked about this.
I'm filling out around Miss Nicholas's questions. I only have a few, not every single thing.
What makes it a little bit unique is that she's not trying to use a prior consistent statement. She's using the same exact document that you used, and you left the jury with a certain impression. Now, I don't want you to go full board and try to rehabilitate the prior inconsistent statements.
These are not the ones I addressed. She's gonna change things that have nothing to do with what I addressed. I agree. If I raised an issue, if you told him the sky was blue and I left off that on some days it was cloudy.
You did leave the impression that she left out a lot of details.
Yes, she wants to go back and say the details I never mentioned were actually things she said before, and that's improper.
There were details.
Just go back and establish that she established a lot of the details and leave it at that.
All right, Your Honor. So, Miss Daniels, you did tell Anderson Cooper about a lot of the details that happened in the room and in your other encounters with Mr. Trump, correct?
I did.
I would like you please actually, can we show J2 just to the witness, the court, and to counsel, please? So we are showing you J2, which is an exhibit that Miss Nicholas showed you and asked you some questions about. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And she asked you some questions about your saying, I will dance down the street when he is, quote, selected. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
And do you remember responding that you said that you were only responding and using the same words as the person who had tweeted to you. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I offer that into evidence, Your Honor.
No objection.
Accepted into evidence.
Can you put that up on the screen for everyone, please? Can you blow up the bottom tweet, please, meaning the first tweet? Was this the tweet that you were responding to when you used the term selected?
Yes.
And in this tweet, do you know who it was who posted this tweet on your Twitter page?
Are you asking if I know this person personally? No.
Did you know who the person was?
No.
This is an example of people who sometimes show up and put tweets on your Twitter page.
Yes.
And this person called you a disgusting, degenerate prostitute.
Yes.
And did this person also say good luck walking down the streets after this?
Yes.
What you did, you understand that to mean good luck walking down the street after this.
That I wouldn't be safe going in public anymore.
And did this person also tweet, no wonder Glenn left you?
Yes.
What did you understand that to mean?
There is no surprise that my daughter's father left.
And this tweet was dated March 18th of 2023.
Yes.
And then you responded to that, is that right?
That's correct.
You can take that down now. Can you now show the witness, please, J17, just to the witness, counsel, and the parties, please? Do you recall Miss Nicholas showing you this tweet of yours and asking you a question about your response? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And she didn't ask you at all about the original tweet that you were responding to, is that right?
That's correct.
Is this another example of somebody that showed up on your Twitter page saying something about you that you responded to?
Yes.
And this was back in December of 2022, is that right?
Yes.
And the tweet on this page that you were responding to were you responding to someone calling you an aging harlot?
Yes.
Are these two tweets examples of some of the tweets that you have received from random individuals in relation to things that you have publicly said about Mr. Trump?
Yes. These are tame, actually.
You can take that down now. Can we please show in evidence to everyone People's Exhibit 408B? Ms. Daniels, this tweet by Mr. Trump was August 4th of 2023.
Yes.
And were you aware of this Truth Social post from Mr. Trump when it came out?
Yes. Sorry.
Who did you understand Mr. Trump was directing this to at the time?
I wasn't sure, but I thought it was me.
In what way?
Do you want me to read it?
No, you can read it.
Okay. Because it says, if you go after me, I'm coming after you. This was right around the same time that he filed in Florida, so it seemed to be connected, but I'm not sure.
That he filed in Florida the proceeding against you on the legal fees?
Yes.
You can take that down, thank you. By the way, defense counsel asked you some questions about whether you felt you were responsible for the charges in this case. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You didn't testify in the grand jury in this case, did you?
I did not.
So you had nothing to do with the charges in this case initially, did you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. I will allow.
I'm sorry, your answer?
I did not.
Now, Ms. Nicholas asked you at the end of her questioning about the fact that you didn't know anything about the business records in this case, meaning Mr. Trump's business records. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
Whether you knew anything about the repayments or the reimbursements or any of the business records. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you said you didn't know anything directly, is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall the lawsuit that you filed, your lawyers filed against Mr. Trump to get out of the NDA? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And do you remember that Mr. Trump was represented by counsel in that case?
Yes.
And do you recall that his attorneys, Mr. Trump's attorney, in court papers filed in June of 2018 confirmed that Donald Trump in 2017 had reimbursed Michael Cohen's company, Essential Consultants, for the $130,000 that was paid to you?
Yes, I saw that.
So that was confirmed in Mr. Trump's lawyers' submitted court papers, correct?
Correct.
Now, defense counsel asked you a whole lot of questions regarding your making money about telling lies about Mr. Trump. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Have you been telling lies about Mr. Trump or the truth about Mr. Trump?
The truth.
And now, Ms. Nicholas asked you about whether you're telling your account of what happened with Mr. Trump has made you money. And I think you said it also cost you a lot of money. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
I've had to hire security, take extra precautions, tutors for my daughter, had to move my daughter to a safe place to live. I had to move a couple of times, and I had a judgment on automatic attorney fees because my case from the NDA was thrown out, and I appealed it, and it was dismissed again. So, attorney's fees are automatically awarded in those kinds of instances.
Let me ask you a question. Ms. Daniels, on balance, has your publicly telling the truth about your experience with Mr. Trump had a net positive or a net negative in your life?
Negative.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Any recross?
Yes. Can we put up J2 in evidence now?
Yes.
Can you blow up the bottom part? This is some stranger who sent a tweet to you, right?
You mean strangers?
And that's the kind of thing that happens
Of
on
course.
Twitter, right? Yes, post nasty things. It says nasty stuff. It says you are a disgusting, degenerate
Yes.
prostitute who accepts money, and then it says to frame an innocent man, right? And then at the bottom, it
Yes.
says POTUS will be selected by a
Yes.
landslide in 2024, right? It's a nasty post, right? And it's from someone who politically
It appears
opposed,
that way.
who is politically opposed to you, right? Supporting President Trump, right?
Among lots of other things, yes.
And that's the kind of stuff that goes on Twitter? And if we could take that down and let's look at, wait, put that back up for a minute. And go to your response, to her
Yes.
response, please. And you say, so
Yes.
Tiny paid me to frame him, right? That's you being nasty back? And you sound even dumber than he does during his illiterate ramblings. You were being nasty also, right?
Yes.
You were calling each other names, right?
Yes.
At this point, a person you don't even know, you're engaged in fighting of calling each other names, right?
I didn't call this person names.
You said you sound dumber than he does.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And then you say, I won't walk, I will dance down the street when he's selected to go to jail, right?
Yes.
And you engaged in these kinds of back and forths with strangers all the time, right?
Sure.
You prided yourself in what you considered your witty answers, right?
Uh-huh.
So when the prosecutors put these up and talk about how people were attacking you, you were attacking them right back, right?
I was defending myself.
And attacking them right back, right?
I never attacked anybody first. The same with Mr. Trump. I didn't say anything negative about him until he did it to me.
And you were calling President Trump's names there, right?
Yes.
And you're calling whoever asked this Twitter or posted this Twitter names, right?
I said they sound dumb. As in, the tweet is dumb. I stand by that.
If you can put that down and put up J17 for the witness and the parties, and I offer this in evidence,
No objection.
we can show that. And the prosecutors asked you about whether someone else said some nasty stuff to you again, right?
Yes.
And they called you an aging harlot, right?
Yes.
Again, nasty, right?
Yes.
And you jabbed right back at them, right?
Yes.
And you jabbed back and said, you are so rich that you've more money than they do, right?
Did I say that?
Well, you said you made $1 million and you just bought a new ranch house, right?
I don't say I have more money than them.
You say you made $1 million, right?
Uh-huh.
And just paid for your new ranch, right?
Yes.
And that's what you've been doing consistently for some time now, right?
What's that? Replying? Standing up for myself on Twitter or paying my bills?
Entering into Twitter battles.
Yes, sure. When somebody attacks me, I'm going to defend myself.
We can take that down now. And you can put up 408B in evidence, please. And you were just shown this by the prosecution, right?
Yes.
And you said you thought that that was about you.
I said I didn't know. It could be.
It doesn't mention your name, right?
No.
And are you aware that at the time that President Trump posted this, there was a Republican PAC that was going after him?
No.
Do you know whether this had to do with that Republican PAC?
Of course not.
And you have no knowledge that this had anything to do with you, right?
No. And I said as much.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
I just have 2 questions, Your Honor. Can we put back up J2 in evidence, please? Thank you. Can you do a split screen also of People's 408A if possible? Ms. Daniels, take a look at People's 408A. What is the date on that truth post by Mr. Trump calling you a horse face and sleazebag? What was the date of that?
March 15th, 2023.
And what is the date of the post that is in evidence as J2?
March 21, 2023.
So how many days later was J2 after the defendant's post?
6.
Thank you very much. Nothing further.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. You can step down. People, please call your next witness.
You've been listening to a verbatim reading of every legal word contained within a publicly accessible, unsealed, and open court document. The reading may have contained minor idiosyncrasies such as mispronunciations or slight stumbles by the reader. It is important to note the document is freely available to the public in its entirety. The purpose of this reading was solely to recite the words present in the transcripts without any alteration or interpretation of their meaning. To support this endeavor, please visit everylegalword.com. Thank you for listening.